June 6, 1944. A German general peers from his concrete bunker. He is the guardian of the Atlantic Wall, an impenetrable fortress. But as the sun rises, he sees the impossible. Not an invasion, 10,000 ships, a floating city, and in 1 second he knows the war is lost. 2 a.m., June 6, 1944. A command bunker near Caen, France. The air inside the concrete walls of the 716th Infantry Division's headquarters is thick with stale cigarette smoke and the metallic smell of anxiety. The electricity hums, the generators vibrating just enough to make the maps on the wall tremble. Outside, a full gale is blowing. For weeks, the Wehrmacht in Normandy has been sleeping with one eye open. They are the guardians of Festung Europa Fortress Europe. They man the Atlantic Wall, the most formidable defensive line ever conceived, a concrete spine running from Norway to the Spanish border, built on the orders of the Führer himself and reinforced with obsessive detail by Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. But tonight, the storm is their ally. A telephone rings, its shrill cry cutting through the bunker's murmur. An operations officer snatches it. He listens, his face hardening. "General," he says, turning to General Major Wilhelm Richter. "Reports from the 709th, Cotentin Peninsula, Fallschirmjäger. Paratroopers." Richter is on his feet. More calls light up the switchboard. Reports from the Orne River estuary. More paratroopers, gliders, explosions near Sainte-Mère-Église. The invasion. It's begun. Or has it? The men in this bunker are tense, but they are not panicking. They are, after all, professionals. They check their charts. The weather. Kanalwetter Channel Weatheris reported as Storm Force 6. The sea is a churning mass of 12-foot waves. The cloud ceiling is barely 1,000 feet. It is, in a word, unlandbar. Unlandable. No commander in their right mind would launch a full-scale amphibious invasion in this. Not even the Americans. This must be a diversion, a probing attack. An attempt to sow chaos and support the resistance. The reports are too scattered, too strange. A soldier from the 711th Division reports capturing French civilians in strange uniforms. Another calls in, breathless, about dolls man-sized dummies strapped with firecrackers littering the fields. Generaloberst Friedrich Dollmann, commanding the entire 7th Army from Le Mans, receives the same reports and agrees. This is a sideshow. The 7th Army's daily morning report will later note, there is no indication of an imminent landing. The enemy's airborne operations are to be seen as a nuisance. The real prize, everyone knows, is Pas de Calais, the shortest route, the port. That is where the real Atlantic Wall is strongest. That is where Hitler's prized panzer divisions are held in reserve, waiting for the real blow. Normandy. Normandy is a sideshow. Even the great Field Marshal Rommel, the Desert Fox, the man who personally laid millions of mines and poured thousands of tons of concrete into this coast, believes it. He believes it so strongly that he is, at this very moment, hundreds of miles away in Germany, preparing to give his wife a pair of Parisian shoes for her 50th birthday. He left because of the weather. The Atlantic Wall was his brainchild, his obsession. He knew it wasn't finished, not by a long shot. But he had layered it with devil's gardens, of mines, concrete dragon's teeth, and the infamous Rommel-Spargel-angled poles designed to rip the wings off landing gliders. In the water, he'd placed a thicket of steel obstacles. The wall was designed to do one thing, and one thing only, to kill the invasion on the beaches, to rip the Allied armies to pieces in the surf before they could gain a single yard of French soil. The first 24 hours of the invasion will be decisive. Rommel had written to Hitler, "The fate of Germany depends on the outcome. It will be the longest day." As 3 a.m. rolls over to 4 a.m., the paratrooper reports are still filtering in. The 716th and 709th Divisions are fighting, but the situation is a mess of confusion. And then, as the first, sickly grey light of dawn begins to stain the eastern sky, a new sound joins the wind and the sporadic gunfire. It's a low, guttural vibration. A rumble so deep it's felt in the soles of the jackboots more than it is heard. It's not planes, it's not artillery, it's coming from the sea. 5 a.m., June 6th, 1944. An observation bunker, Point du Hoc. The rumble is now a physical weight, a pressure on the chest. It's the sound of 10,000 engines idling, a deep, mechanical growl that seems to come from the entire horizon. In the pre-dawn darkness, the grey, churning English Channel is invisible. The storm is only just beginning to abate, but the wind still howls, whipping salt spray against the thick concrete casemates of the Atlantic Wall. General Major Richter, in his bunker near Caen, is now staring at his maps, a cold dread creeping past his professional skepticism. The reports are too many. The Fallschirmjäger are not just nuisance dummies. They are fighting and dying all over the Cotentin Peninsula, but it's the men on the coast who will see it first. 20 miles west of Richter, Oberleutnant Werner Pluskat, the artillery spotting officer for the 352nd Infantry Division, rubs his eyes. He is stationed in a state-of-the-art observation post, Bunker WN-60, dug into the cliffs overlooking the Langkusteta Long coast. The Allies will soon know it by another name, Omaha Beach. Pluskat hasn't slept. For hours, his powerful artillery-ranging binoculars have been sweeping the blackness, penetrating the mist. His phone has been ringing with the same confused reports. Paratroopers. But nothing on the sea. Nothing. His commander, General Major Dietrich Kress, had been clear. This is a diversion. Stay alert, but the real attack is at Calais. Now, at 5:07 a.m., the world changes. A gap appears in the low-hanging clouds. The pre-dawn light, a sickly blue-grey, illuminates the surface of the water. The sea is still rough, whitecaps breaking everywhere, but it is no longer empty. Pluskat lowers his binoculars, wipes the lenses on his wool uniform, and raises them again. His hands are shaking. It's impossible. It must be a hallucination. The ocean is gone. In its place is a forest of steel masts. He strains to see. The shapes are blurry, grey ghosts in the gloom. He focuses the lenses, the small wheel digging into his freezing fingers. They are ships, not one, not a dozen, not 100. He sweeps his binoculars left, then right. From the edge of his vision to the other, the entire horizon is a solid, unbroken, jagged line of metal. Battleships, as big as city blocks, cruisers, destroyers, and behind them, a dark, churning mass that stretches back and back and back, all the way to England. It's a carpet of vessels, so dense he feels you could walk on them from France to London. It is not an invasion fleet. It is a floating continent. My God, he whispers to his subordinate. It is the invasion. It is here. He scrambles for the telephone, his hand slipping on the black Bakelite receiver. He rings his direct superior, Major Block, at the 352nd Divisional Headquarters. Block, this is it. The invasion is here. The voice on the other end is sleepy, irritated. What are you seeing, Pluskat? A few destroyers? A probing force? Probing force? Pluskat's voice cracks, bordering on hysteria. Major, there are 10,000 ships. 10,000. A pause. Are you mad, Pluskat? I'm looking at them. The entire channel it's full. From shore to horizon. You must alert the general. This is not Calais. This is here. The phone clicks. Pluskat doesn't know if he's been believed. He turns back to the binoculars. As the light improves, the scale becomes even more sickening. He can see the smaller craft now, the swarms of Higgins boats, the landing craft, circling, organizing, like metal water bugs in the shadow of the giant warships. And above, the air is no longer empty. The sky is loud. The drone is deafening. He cranes his neck. The low clouds are swarming with aircraft bombers, fighters, their wings painted with black and white stripes. Thousands of them. 11,000, as history will record. In his bunker, General Major Richter gets the call. At 5:30 a.m., General Lieutenant Karl Wilhelm von Schlieben, commanding the 709th near Cherbourg, reports his entire coastline is being approached. The reality hits these commanders like a physical blow. This isn't an army. It's an industrialized nation that has taken to the sea. All their training, all their planning, all the meticulous reports from their intelligence services had prepared them for an attack. They were ready for 200 ships, maybe 300. They were ready for a conventional, brutal fight at Pas-de-Calais, where their 15th Army waited. They were not ready for this. This impossible armada, this logistical miracle. This wasn't war as they knew it. This was an extinction-level event. The Atlantic Wall, Rommel's great achievement, that line of concrete and steel, suddenly feels very small. It's a sandcastle, a brittle joke. And standing in his bunker at Omaha Beach, Oberleutnant Pluskat watches as the sun begins to rise, illuminating the 5,000 ships of the American and British assault forces. He is, at this moment, one of the only men in the Reich who knows the absolute truth. And then, at 5:50 a.m., he sees a ripple of fire erupt from the side of the battleship USS Arkansas. The air screams, the ground heaves, the wall begins to die. 5:50 a.m. The Normandy coast, the world erupts. For Oberleutnant Pluskat, the sound isn't a boom, it's a continuous, physical tearing of the atmosphere. The 14-inch shells from the USS Arkansas and USS Texas don't just explode, they arrive with the force of a locomotive. The concrete observation bunker, 3 feet thick, shudders so violently that dust rains from the ceiling, and the steel observation slit rings like a bell. He is thrown back, his helmet clattering against the wall. The air is sucked out of his lungs, replaced instantly with pulverized concrete and cordite. This is not a battle. This is an execution. All along the 50-mile front, from Utah Beach to Sword, the Atlantic Wall is being systematically, impersonally, and brutally erased. The German commanders had always envisioned a fight in the surf. They had trained their machine gunners to hold their fire until the Allies were in the killing box, waist-deep in water. They never imagined the Allies would bring the artillery of an entire army group with them and start the battle from 10 miles out at sea. The noise is a solid, crushing wall. It's the roar of the battleships, the heavier thud of the cruisers, and the frantic, high-pitched hammering of hundreds of destroyers firing at point-blank range, and over it all, the sky. The sky is black with B-26 Marauders and A-20 Havocs, flying under the low clouds, ignoring the flak, dropping thousands of tons of high explosives on the beach, exits, and command posts. In General Major Richter's bunker at Caen, the lights go out. The generators die, choked by the concussions. The map pins, rattle, and fall to the floor. The telephone lines, the arteries of his command, are all dead. He is blind. He is deaf. He is a general of a division that, for all he knows, no longer exists. The wall was never a solid wall. It was a series of strong points wider stands connected by trenches, minefields, and, most importantly, telephone wires. In 20 minutes, the Allied fleet cuts every wire. The German response is sporadic, pathetic. The heavy coastal batteries at Longues-sur-Mer fire their 152mm guns, straddling the cruiser HMS Ajax, but they are firing at a fleet of thousands. For every German gun that fires, 100 Allied guns fire back. It is a duel between a pistol and an avalanche. The men inside the concrete casemates are not soldiers, they are prisoners. They are men of the 716th Infantry Division, a static division, not an elite assault force. Many are not German at all. They are Osttruppen Poles, Russians, Georgians conscripted from occupied territories, given old French rifles, and told to guard a beach. They are terrified, poorly led, and now they are being buried alive. The bunkers, Rommel's concrete pride, become tombs. The massive shells don't just destroy them, they displace them. They flip 1,000-ton concrete structures upside down. They penetrate the observation slits, incinerating the crews inside with a white-hot flash. The German commanders, who had believed in the superiority of their defensive engineering, are now watching that engineering fail on a catastrophic scale. The steel and concrete obstacles in the surf, designed to rip the bottoms out of landing craft, are instead being used by Allied destroyers as rangefinders. This is the moment of realization. It's not just that they are outnumbered, it's that they are outproduced. They are facing an enemy whose industrial might is so vast that they can afford to build 7,000 ships. An enemy who can blanket the sky with 11,000 aircraft before the main battle has even begun. An enemy who is willing to expend more ammunition in 1 hour than the Wehrmacht had used in the entire Polish campaign. This is not a war of tactics or bravery, it is a war of steel. And the Germans have just realized they have brought a knife to a volcano. At 6:25 a.m., the terrible symphony pauses. The battleship guns go quiet. In the ringing, stunned silence, the men of the 716th and 352nd Divisions stumble out of their wrecked positions, their ears bleeding. They look out at the sea. The smoke clears. And now, the true horror begins. The sea is no longer a forest of static masts. It is a churning, moving mass. The water is black with thousands of small steel boats, their ramps pointed directly at the shore, their prows churning white water. The invasion has not been stopped on the water. It has not been stopped at the beach. It is coming. 6:30 a.m. Widerstandsness 62, Omaha Beach. The ramps drop. For Gefreiter Heinrich Sevelo, peering from the concrete machine gun nest designated WN-62, the last few minutes have been a surreal, ringing silence. Now, the naval guns have lifted, and the sea is disgorging its contents. He grips the spade handles of his Maschinengewehr 42, the MG-42, a technical marvel, capable of firing 1,200 rounds per minute so fast, it doesn't pop like other guns, it rips, like a canvas sheet being torn in two. It is, by doctrine, the centerpiece of the entire German infantry defense. A single, well-placed MG-42 is supposed to hold off a company. Sevelo and his comrades in the 352nd Infantry Division are not Osttruppen. They are well-trained, hardened veterans, many from the Eastern Front. They are exactly who Rommel wanted manning this wall. And they are ready. The first waves of Americans from the 1st Infantry Division der Big Red One are now in the water. They are waist-deep. They are in the killing box. The order is given. The air explodes. From WN-62 and a dozen other strongpoints, the MG-42 seconds open up. The sound is terrifying, a continuous, deafening buzzsaw. The first wave of Americans ceases to exist. They are not pinned down. They are deleted. They are scythed down in the red-frothed surf, their bodies piling up on the sand as a gruesome, instant seawall. Mortars 8-1 MIM, Granatwerfer begin to rain down, their high-explosive shells turning the water into a geyser field. For a few, fleeting moments, the Atlantic Wall works. It is a perfect, horrific vision of defensive warfare. But it's a lie. Because the Americans don't stop. They don't retreat. They don't even slow down. The first wave is gone, so the second wave pushes through their bodies. The third pushes through the second. In his observation post, Oberleutnant Pluskat is screaming into his telephone, directing his 105mm artillery batteries. Fire! Fire! On the beach! Coordinates 0 to 4. They are on the beach! His guns are firing. He can see the shells land, blowing craters in the sand, tossing bodies into the air. But for every landing craft his guns destroy, 10 more are already unloading. He watches, in sick fascination, as destroyers drive themselves full speed toward the shore, scraping their own hulls on the sand to blast his concrete bunkers at point-blank range. This is the moment of truth. The wall was a theory. The Wehrmacht's entire defensive doctrine for the West was built on one single assumption, that the enemy could be broken in the surf, that they would be repulsed by the initial shock and awe. The theory is wrong. The Americans keep coming. They are dying in heaps, but they are a tide of flesh, and they have more men than the Germans have bullets. By 7 a.m., General Major Richter is in a cold panic. His command bunker is a scene of chaos. The telephones are working, but only in patches. He's getting reports that are pure fantasy. One unit claims the landings are repulsed. The next, from a position only 500 yards away, reports being completely overrun. He looks at his map. He knows what he needs. He needs panzers. He calls the 7th Army headquarters. I need the 21st Panzer Division. I need them now. The invasion is at Köln. The 21st Panzer Division, the Reich's only armoured force anywhere near the landing beaches, is sitting in its camps, engines cold. Its commander, General Major Edgar Feuchtinger, is also on the phone, begging his own superiors at Army Group B for permission to move, and he is told, no. The order is ironclad. The panzer divisions are the Führer's personal reserve. They cannot be committed, cannot be moved, cannot even fuel their tanks without a direct, personal order from Adolf Hitler. And at 7 a.m. on June 6th, Adolf Hitler is fast asleep at his retreat in Berchtesgaden. His adjutants are under strict orders not to wake him. This is the ultimate, terrible joke. The generals in Normandy can see the impossible armada. They can see their precious wall being washed away by a tide of blood and steel. They have finally, completely, understood the scale of the disaster. General Oberst Dollmann, the 7th Army commander, stares at his map, at the red arrows flooding in from Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword. He realizes the truth. The paratroopers were not a diversion. The bombardment was not a feint. The ships at Pas-de-Calais are ghosts. This is it, the Schwerpunkt, the decisive point, and all his best weapons are locked in a box, 1,000 miles away, by a sleeping man. The Atlantic Wall was not a fortress. It was a prison. It was a thin, concrete cage designed to hold its own defenders in place, to be slaughtered by an enemy they could see, but could not fight. 9:30 a.m. Le Mans, France. Headquarters, 7th Army. The map is a bleeding wound. General Oberst Friedrich Dollmann stands before it, a telephone receiver held limply at his side. The voice of General Major Richter has dissolved into a frantic, static-filled plea for reinforcements that will not come. The reports are no longer confused. They are terrifyingly clear. At Omaha, the invincible 352nd Division is being flanked, its bunkers overrun not by frontal assault, but by small groups of American Rangers climbing the cliffs, blowing the guns, and attacking the crews from behind. Gefreiter Sevelo, after firing over 12,000 rounds from his MG-42, is forced to retreat, his impenetrable strong point now a useless concrete box. At Utah, the Americans are off the beach. They are inland, linking up with the paratroopers of the 101st Airborne. At Gold, Juno, and Sword, the British and Canadians are grinding their way through the coastal villages, their specialized funnies flail tanks, flame-throwing tanks doing what the Germans thought impossible, breaching the wall with armor. The wall is not just breached, it has evaporated. And now, Dollmann, Richter, and General Feld Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, the frail, aristocratic commander-in-chief Westare, all screaming for the same thing, panzers. We must counterattack now, von Rundstedt barks into the phone to Berlin. To General Feldmarschall Keitel at OKW, the Reich High Command, while they are still on the beaches. We must throw them back into the sea, release the Panzerlehr and the 12th SS. This is the doctrine. This is the plan. The Atlantic Wall was the anvil. The panzer divisions were the hammer. The plan was always to let the Allies land, then annihilate them on the shore with a swift, brutal, armoured counterstroke. But the hammer is locked in a box. At the Berghof, Hitler's mountain retreat, General Oberst Alfred Jodl receives von Rundstedt's desperate request. Jodl, the Führer's most loyal operations chief, looks at the clock. It is 10 a.m. The Führer retired late. He is still sleeping. Jodl hesitates. To wake the Führer with bad news is a career-ending, and sometimes life-ending, proposition. And, what if von Rundstedt is wrong? What if this is the diversion? What if the real invasion comes at Calais tomorrow, and the precious panzers have been wasted in Normandy? Jodl makes a decision. The Führer must not be disturbed. We will wait. We must see if this is the main effort. The message goes back to France. No. For the commanders on the ground, it is a moment of pure, undilled dazes insanity. They are looking at the sea. They can see the 10,000 ships. It is an armada so vast it blots out the horizon. It is a logistical impossibility, a city floating on the ocean, and it is pouring men and steel onto 5 beaches. What, they wonder, does Berlin think a main effort looks like? General Major Richter, hearing that the 21st Panzer Division is still forbidden to move, slams his fist on the table. They are mad! Do they think we are fighting ghosts? The joke is complete. The Atlantic Wall, the great propaganda triumph of the Reich, is a catastrophic failure. It was built on a lie, not a lie of concrete and steel, but a lie of strategy. It was a bluff, designed to intimidate, and the Allies had just called it. The Germans in Normandy had spent 4 years staring at the sea, preparing for an invasion. They had built their defences to stop a conventional assault. But this was not an assault, this was an occupation. An industrial power had decided to move from one continent to another, and it was not asking for permission. Miles away in Germany, at his home, Field Marshal Rommel finally gets through to his headquarters. His chief of staff, General Hans Speidel, delivers the news. The voice is calm, but the words are devastating. Herr Feldmarschall, they are landing. At Normandy. The scale, it is enormous. Rommel is silent. He knows, better than anyone, what this means. He knows the beach obstacles are not finished. He knows the minefields are incomplete. And he knows, with chilling certainty, that the panzers are in the wrong place. The first 24 hours will be decisive, he had promised the Führer. He looks at the Parisian shoes for his wife, sitting on his table. He looks at the telephone. The 24 hours have barely begun, and he already knows. The wall was a joke. The reserves are paralyzed. The longest day has just begun, and for the Third Reich, the war is already lost. 14:30 p.m., 2:30 p.m. Berchtesgaden, the Berghof. The Führer is awake. Adolf Hitler, having been informed of the diversion in Normandy, finally convenes his daily conference. The air in the grand, sunlit room is thick with unreality. General Feldmarschall Keitel and Generaloberst Jodl present the maps. They are hesitant. Hitler looks at the reports. 5 beachheads, thousands of ships, paratroopers. He laughs. It is a short, sharp, barking laugh of genuine amusement. So, he says, a strange, almost glee-filled light in his eyes. They have landed, and right where we expected them the least. How perfect. It's a trap. To the men in the room, it is a moment of chilling dislocation. The greatest military operation in human history is underway, and the Supreme Commander of the Wehrmacht believes it is a complex ruse. This is not the real invasion, he insists, jabbing a finger at the map. They are trying to draw our reserves south. To lure the 15th Army away from Calais, we will hold the panzers. We wait. The pleas from von Rundstedt and Rommel, who is now in a staff car, frantically racing back to France, are dismissed. Hitler is adamant. This is a sideshow, but he will throw them a bone. 1 division. The order finally goes out. General Major Edgar Feuchtinger and the 21st Panzer Division, who have been sitting outside Köln, listening to the world end just 10 miles away, are finally unleashed. 16:00 p.m., 4 p.m., outside Köln. The engines of 127 Panzer IVs and self-propelled guns roar to life. This is the moment. This is the hammer. Feuchtinger's orders are simple. Drive to the sea, push them back, do not stop. His columns begin to move, emerging from their camouflaged orchards, clattering onto the roads north. They are aiming for the gap between Juno and Sword beaches, and the sky falls on them. The German commanders had seen the 11,000 aircraft over the fleet. They had not yet understood what that meant inland. The Allied pilots, flying Hawker Typhoons and P-47 Thunderbolts, call it a target-rich environment. For the Germans, it is Jabo Schreckfighter bomber terror. The air is a constant, shrieking swarm. The panzers are not in a battle, they are in a slaughterhouse. The Tiffys come in low, their engines screaming, firing 60-pound rocket projectiles that hit the tanks with the force of a naval destroyer's shell. The P-47 seconds follow, their 8.50 caliber machine guns ripping the thinner top armor to shreds. A tank commander, his head out of the hatch, doesn't even hear the plane that kills him. A Panzer IV brews up, the ammunition inside cooking off in a catastrophic explosion. Drivers panic, trying to pull their 25-ton machines off the road, only to get bogged down in the soft Norman soil, where they become stationary targets. Feuchtinger's division is bleeding before it ever sees an enemy soldier. By the time the shattered remnants of his Kampfgruppe finally reach the coast, near Lyon-sur-Mer, the sun is beginning to set. A handful of tanks, perhaps 40, make it to the ridge. And there, they stop. Their commanders, looking through their periscopes, see it for themselves. The sight that Pluskat had seen at dawn, the sea. It is still there. It is still solid with ships, but now it is an unloading city. Giant Liberty ships sit on the horizon, cranes already swinging. Endless lines of transports are queuing up. And on the beaches, the British are not clinging to the surf. They are ashore. They have anti-tank guns. They have artillery. They are digging in. The panzer crews watch as the battleships Warspite, Remilia stern their 15-inch guns inland. The German tanks, with their short 75mm guns, are supposed to fight. It is a moment of pure, sickening absurdity. A German general, whether it was Feuchtinger himself or Richter receiving the report, now understood the full, terrible truth. The 10,000 ships were not a lie. The wall was. The Atlantic Wall was a joke. It was a thin, concrete crust, and the Allies had just punched through it with a hammer forged from the entire industrial might of the New World. This wasn't a battle to be won or lost. It was a simple, brutal equation of mass. The German commanders in Normandy had just realized that all their training, all their victories in France and Poland, all their vaunted blitzkrieg tactics were irrelevant. They were a 1st century army facing a 21st century machine. As the sun sets on June 6th, 1944, the longest day, the realization sinks in. It is not just the beach that is lost. It is not just Normandy. It is everything. The war is over.